You may have noticed Robert Scheer making the rounds lately on TV and radio to promote his new book, The Great American Stickup. Robert Scheer is a former Los Angeles Times reporter and columnist. In fact, just the other day, Cenk interviewed him on MSNBC. Well, I read his book and I wanted to review it briefly here. The subtitle of the book is How Reagan Republicans and Clinton Democrats Enriched Wall Street While Mugging Main Street. So that's what it's about. It's not really specifically about the details of the 2008 financial collapse, although, of course, that's the climax of the book. That's where everything's heading. First, I want to tell you a little bit about how I read the book, which is important to determine whether you're going to believe my review or not. Here at TYT, we receive a ton of books. 9 out of every 10 of them is total crap. But there is that 1 out of 10, which sometimes I take home to read. Usually my attitude is, I don't have time to read this book. I don't really want to, but it was free, so I can just open it and skim it and get as much out of it. And doing that is better than not opening it or looking at it at all. So that's what I did. I read this book really quickly on a plane from LA to New Jersey a couple of weeks ago. And so I'm telling you now, I didn't really read every word, every sentence. In fact, I don't even think I read every chapter. But that's all right. My initial reaction to this book was that it was so-so, a decent story, but not a great technical explanation of how 30 years of financial deregulation got us into the 2008 mess. I think I was expecting a more technical explanation of how the 2 major pieces of legislation, the Financial Services Modernization Act and the Commodities Future Modernization Act, passed at the end of the Clinton administration, actually led to the 2008 crisis and what that crisis was all about. But I guess you get some of that or more of that from other books like Too Big to Fail by Andrew Sorkin or The Big Short by Michael Lewis. But when I went over the book again to prepare for this vlog, I started to appreciate it a little more. It's a story of the people who pushed for this financial deregulation, starting in the Reagan administration through Clinton and all the way up to the crisis. You know the usual cast of culprits. Larry Summers, Robert Rubin, Bill Clinton, Tim Geithner, Phil Gramm and his wife, Greenspan. Greenspan actually appears less in this book than some of the others, which is interesting. But he's definitely one of the villains. And of course, the guys who were in charge of Citigroup and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and Goldman Sachs, etc. So the book is a good story of what all these individuals in politics and industry did to rig the rules in their favor so that they could get rich permanently and their companies could get rich temporarily until the bubble burst and the companies went bankrupt, and all of us had to bail them out. There's a good story in the book about how Sanford Weill, the head of Citigroup, made a corrupt deal with Jesse Jackson to get the Financial Services Modernization Act passed toward the end of the Clinton administration. Citigroup needed this bill to pass to get government stamp of approval for its giant merger and new risky trading activities, but there was resistance on the part of the Black Congressional Caucus. They wanted some provisions to encourage more lending to minorities and the indigent. So those provisions were put in, and then Jesse Jackson used to encourage the Black Congressional Caucus to vote in favor of the bill. The bill did pass, but they couldn't leave well enough alone, and at the last second they actually weakened some of those provisions. The great irony of that then is that when everything crashed in 2008, one of the lines conservatives used, lines of argument, was that the crisis occurred because too many blacks and poor people took out loans they couldn't afford, when actually, at the last second, they weakened the provisions in that bill that would have protected people against that kind of activity. There are 2 good chapters in this book that I want to note. One is on Brooksley Born, the regulator who foresaw trouble coming from the uncontrolled high-risk trading of derivatives, but when she sought to put controls on that, she was shot down by Rubin, Summers, and Greenspan. And the other is a good chapter on Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae and their role in the crisis. So, The Great American Stickup by Robert Scheer. Not a great book, but good enough. I think you'd be happy if you got it. If you're going to read it, I think you should read it the way I did. Read it quickly. You don't have to read every word of every paragraph of every chapter, but if you see something you like, slow down and really digest that. So thanks for watching this vlog. As a reward for getting to the end, I'm going to offer you my copy of The Great American Stickup. All you have to do is email me at producer@theyoungturks.com, producer@theyoungturks.com, Include your mailing address, and I will pick one of those emails at random and just email you my copy. And that way I'll be rid of it, and I'll be able to share it with one of you. So thanks again.